time today. What is your message to the voters in these final 2 weeks on why you should be elected?
Well, Jack, first off, thank you for having me. Why voters should elect me is I'm not just born and raised here, as my opponent talks about. I've built a business here. I've worked with every school district that makes up this congressional district. I have experience in actually making sure every child's prepared for a thriving future, but making sure every adult can participate in our economy because I have the business experience of creating jobs, balancing a budget, forecasting growth, these necessary things that we need to come back from an economic crisis. I am the only person in this race with real experience.
Let me ask you, I want to talk a little bit about that, but first wanted to ask you regarding the coronavirus. How would you rate the Trump administration's response to the COVID-19 pandemic?
Well, I think the federal government did some stuff that was really right and did some stuff that needs to change. First off, unleashing the resources of the federal government, making sure we had PPP and SBA loans, be able to immediately help small businesses and our American citizens get the resources that they need is really important. Unleashing what our businesses can do, getting PPP and ventilators to hospitals immediately. That really worked. What doesn't work is the continued stalled relief in making sure that people who are barely hanging on, small businesses, like my friend Nikki J in Rowlett, or my friend Brianna here in Garland, who are struggling to keep their small businesses. This is totally unacceptable that Congress continues to play party line politics on this.
And so do you support, I know there are negotiations going on right now between Speaker Pelosi and the Trump administration. So where are you on that negotiation? Because as you know, House Democrats approved a $2.2 trillion plan. That was their 2.0. The original was 3.5 trillion. So where are you number-wise on this?
I mean, it seems to me that we are closing the gap between both Republicans and Democrats. We've got to stop playing party line politics on this and just find a number to get it done. I really do think that what we need to be focused on is laser-specific relief, like PPP, like liability coverage for businesses, like ensuring that we're funding our police, and that we're really being targeted in how we're getting relief out. I don't specifically have a number. I trust that these two parties can come together because that's what the American people deserve. And if anyone doesn't stand up and say enough is enough, then that's on them. And that's what I've been disappointed in my opponent for not standing up and saying, get it done and find a way. Because that's, as the Congresswoman for this district, that's what I would do.
Regarding the reopening of the national and Texas economies, are we open too much, not enough, or just right?
Coronavirus is something we're still struggling with, Jack. We're all still fearful and nervous about what this is going to look like. But people need to be able to work to provide for themselves and their families. We just have to find a way to do it quickly and safely, most importantly. Whether that's PPE or having other, small business loans be able to help people do their business. I think that we've got to trust our federal, state, and local legislators to help usher us in to be successful and manage this crisis, because our lives do have to go on, but we have to do it safely.
What about, you talked a little bit about some of the coronavirus relief. What do you think the best way is to bring the economy back in the longer term?
Well, first off, let's address coronavirus. As you know, I spent the last 2 weekends in the hospital having emergency surgeries. And the process for COVID testing, getting the test results back quickly is really where we need to focus on. We need to make sure that these test results come back quick and come back accurate. There are far too many false positives These are what the nurses, doctors, surgeons that I talked to for hours on end were all saying. We can't have people wait 3 to 7 days to get the results back from their coronavirus tests. That's not acceptable, and we've got to make sure that we close that supply chain and really tighten up that process. To get our economy back, what we need to be focusing on is bringing back manufacturing jobs like our medical supply chain from China. Garland has a fabulous manufacturing facility. And distribution center. We should be bringing those jobs back to Garland. We need to expand the innovation network in Richardson, which should basically go from George Bush Turnpike all the way down Central Expressway. Dallas should be a hub of innovation and economic development. We need to have the federal government give small business grants and loans to entrepreneurs and young entrepreneurs to get them starting, because small businesses and startups are the lifeblood of our economy. There are really a lot of tactical things and strategic things that we can do to make a big difference in people's lives immediately.
Let me ask you, because tax cuts are going to be an issue, and tax increases in the presidential race. And so where do you stand on that as far as the upper income earners? I know Democratic presidential candidate Joe Biden has said that he favors $4 trillion in tax increases by increasing the tax rate corporations pay and those who earn $400,000 or more. Where are you on that?
So I am not for tax increases. I think that the 2017 tax cuts actually harnessed the great and allowed for the greatest innovation and bull market the Americans have ever experienced, with the lowest unemployment rate for women, minorities like African Americans, and Latinos. More importantly, though, H&R Block estimates that the 2017 tax cuts gave every average American middle-class family $1,400 to $2,000 back in their paychecks. To increase taxes on our public coming out of a global pandemic is completely unacceptable. My opponent supports the Biden tax plan, which is a $4 trillion tax increase. It will affect 82% of Americans. The Tax Foundation estimates that it will reduce GDP over 10 years by 1.5%, have negative effect on wages, and reduce our full-time job equivalents of over 517,000 jobs. That is doing worse for America. And no North Texan I know wants their taxes increased, whether it's from their paycheck or in their property taxes. And my opponent supports all of these things.
You touched on health care before, and I was just wondering, the Supreme Court is going to be considering the state of Texas lawsuit and other states to have it declared unconstitutional. Do you think that the Affordable Care Act should be declared unconstitutional?
You know, I really trust our our justices, and how they're going to really hold the Constitution and abide, whether it is, the Affordable Care Act and the individual mandate really are constitutional or not. What I think has been disappointing is that Republicans in Congress have kicked the can down the line on this. They've been wanting to repeal and replace it, and now we're looking to the judicial system to find a way to get rid of the Affordable Care Act. That's not acceptable. You can't repeal something with nothing to replace it with. That's not common sense. And I think that we've got to really make the legislature, the legislative branch, accountable to doing their job and not passing the buck to the judicial system.
So what is your alternative? And how can you convince people that if you oppose the Affordable Care Act, that you support protecting people's pre-existing conditions?
Well, the Affordable Care Act caused fewer insurance providers to be allowed in the marketplace. So we have less competition. We have higher premiums, double the premiums. And I honestly think that people with pre-existing conditions are worse off. They're not able to go to UT Southwestern or the Cancer Centers of America if they're in the individual market. The Obamacare basically created poor incentives for the insurance market. We need to add competition into the marketplace, adding a number of insurance providers that can span from Medicare, Medicaid, to all sorts of private plans because that competition will reduce prices. We also have to make sure that we end surprise billing, and we have price transparency. I just mentioned to you before we started this, spending 2 weeks in the hospital, it costs $36,000. I just got the bill yesterday. $36,000 for 2 weekends in the hospital. That is a lot of money. It's a brand new car, right? That is a lot of money, and we need price transparency to ensure that we are a more informed consumer base. We can ask questions, and we hold big pharma and these insurance companies accountable.
Let me ask about policing reform. Do you support that? And if so, what would you include?
Absolutely support it. I've been working with the Dallas Police Association, in addition to our local Black leaders, really listening to them all summer and seeing how we can knit the fabric of our communities back together. Police reform has to happen, because what happened to George Floyd or Breonna Taylor or countless others should never happen. And we need to find and say that if we are all treated equally in the eyes of the law, then that needs to be applicable to every American citizen, period. I believe that we need transparency and accountability with body cams and dash cams. Dallas banned chokeholds in 1984. We need to make that systematic across our country. We need to ensure that we have a federal registry for bad cops. Dallas Police Department doesn't want these cops, but we need to be able to have a way to have a check and balance for making sure that those few don't taint the many who are really great cops and pillars of the community. These are some of the easy tactical things that we should be passing and not playing party line politics with.
My last question to you is, this race is considered likely Democratic by the Cook Political Report. So what are you doing to change that?
Well, I'm here in Dallas, and Cook Political Report is not located here. I'm talking to our community. I'm working with folks across all businesses, all walks of life, really talking to them about what it means to be a Texan, to have pro-business values, have pro-family values, to talk about what it means to be a Texan and have great tax values or tax policy. We should be the shining city on a hill. North Texas is an economic engine, not just of our state, but our nation. And we should be the example of what everyone wants to achieve. And that's why people are moving here. And as a woman who's built a business here, who's worked with every school district in this congressional district, and who has been a part of our community, I am the only one with true, meaningful experience on bringing us back together, but ensuring that we're all better off.
Genevieve Collins, Republican candidate for the 32nd Congressional District, thank you so much, and also glad to see that you're on the mend and feeling better.
Thanks, Jack. Appreciate you.
Cruising down the road, got the hammer down. Tell all your friends this is Cowboys Town.